What is up, YouTube? Today I wanted to go over how to put a custom asset into SnowRunner. I've been asked this question a couple times, so I decided I would just make a video, basically. I think I've done it before for Macs, but today I'm going to be using pretty much all free software. I'll include the links for where you can download the software at, and hopefully you have some understanding of some of this stuff. You kind of know where the editor is already at from SnowRunner, how to get in there and start working on a map, and you already have that knowledge. I'm also going to assume that you have some knowledge of Blender and how to use it, along with paint.net, which is what a free texturing software that I'll use. A lot of people for SnowRunner use Substance Painter. I do typically. So normally I just use that to make my textures, but I'm going to try to show y'all the freest way I can, basically. For those of you that don't have the money to buy the Substance Painter, but I highly recommend it. But anyway, the other program I've already spoke about is paint.net. Besides that, is another program. It's called Laigter. It's a normal map creator. It's this program. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I have a link to it as well. It's a free normal map generator, and I'll show y'all what that does in a little bit. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into this. Best way to do this is obviously you need a 3D model of some kind. Whether you've created it yourself or you have gotten it from somewhere else, you're going to need to prepare it for SnowRunner and get it ready for the game. And the editor always doesn't have those files for custom assets. So we'll talk about that when we actually get to it. But let's go into Blender and get us a model prep for game and set up for texturing and pretty much just ready to go in the game. Alright, typically most people start with this as their Blender scene. You can just delete everything that you don't want. We are going to add back the cube because I'm going to make a box today, basically. Something simple that is easy to talk about and easy for me to work on and get in game pretty quickly, because this could get really long and really complicated. So for the simplicity of things, I'm going to keep it this way. Alright. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up above the ground here, because I do not want it to spawn in the ground. So, obviously, because when I'm placing this model, it will get annoying if it spawns into the ground every time, and I gotta move it up and, you know, inside the game when I spawn it in to place it. So I moved it up. I'm gonna go ahead and set my origin back to the 3D cursor, because your origin point is actually the point at which the spawn point, or for this object, will be. So I'm going to also apply my transforms, sorry about that, so that cursor is there and my cube is basically moved up above the ground and now positioned for SnowRunner's world, basically above the ground. There is orientation at which things spawn, so if you're trying to build something that will that needs to be facing another direction when you spawn it in, or like per se a rock or something that you were gonna put multiple times in, you would want to try to figure out the orientation of it. I believe SnowRunner uses where the X is the front, so where you would have the X sticking out the side of the model this way, this would be the very front of the model's face right here. So at least nonetheless in 3ds Max. Sorry, I'm not very much used to Blender, but I'm trying to make it work nowadays. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this bad boy to DBZ small box. Alright, so this name will be the name of the actual mesh that I'm going to spawn. So whatever I name this corresponds to this box's name. Alright, so this will be the model that is displayed that you see your eyes. Okay, now if I just use this and put this in game, it would technically work, but your problem is that you're gonna see that you would just drive through this box each time, because there is no collision mesh. Okay, a collision mesh is also known as a CDT in SnowRunner. So collision mesh equals CDT. CDT is what anything interacts with. So if you're driving and your tire comes here and you want to hit the edge of this box, you need your CDT to be at the edge of this box relatively. Okay, that's the concept. Now, there is a small flaw that I've noticed in SnowRunner over time, that if you do a CDT that's exactly the same size as the object that you're trying to display, you're going to float above it. A lot of the in-game models, you'll notice that you float above things. Okay, to fix that, you need to scale your CDT just a little bit down to be inside of the mesh so that your tire would meet the surface of the mesh you're trying to display, if that makes sense. So if you want to go back and listen to that again, you can. That's just an explanation of what they are. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rename the mesh itself. This typically doesn't really matter, but I like to keep everything the same. So that's just me. Alright, cool. Now we got a box. Woo. I'm not sure about the scaling of this, honestly. So we will copy this and we will paste this. Alright, the second box here I'm going to call CDT, just like I said. Rename everything to CDT. Okay, so we have one box and then we got a CDT box. Alright, now just like I said, I would suggest scaling the CDT box slightly smaller. But modeling issue, which is hopefully you would know this real quick. I made a mistake by not moving the origin point to the center of the block so that it would scale all the way correctly around it, because if you notice when I zoom in, you'll see that this is being scaled from the bottom down. You don't want that. I want all four sides to be drivable, So if I scaled this like this, you would have a hovering side on one side and then all droppable sides on the other side. So I don't want that. I need to take and set my origin point to the center of the object. Then I would scale it correctly. So, and I'm just guessing on scaling again, like I said. Typically 0.9 works. Well, if I had it actually set. So, I might go bigger. Yeah. Sorry, I just moved it a while ago. I freaked myself out. Yeah, so like 0.9 usually, or something like that, usually is fairly decent size. That should be pretty accurate. Once again, I'm going to go set the origin to the 3D cursor again, and I'm going to go apply all the transforms to that. Okay? Cool beans. Alright, so now we pretty much have a base model ready to go for SnowRunner. But we would need to apply a texture to this. To do that, we need to add a material to this. Every mesh needs a material typically. So, to do that in Blender, we come down here to the little circle with like whatever these are on it. But I'm going to add basically a new material to this guy. And I'm going to name it DBZ. And I always name my stuff DBZ so that whenever I'm searching in the editor, it shows up as my name. So any of my stuff that I want to look for, I just type in DBZ and it will show me all my stuff. Then what I name it after that will be what I would need to search for next. So small box. But materials don't necessarily need to be the same name as the mesh itself. It could be just small box texture. But what you might run into is colliding with the game's textures or something like that. So I would suggest that you just go ahead and keep the same naming scheme through all your parts. It's the easiest, cleanest way. Okay. Alright, now then. So basically, we have a collision mesh called CDT, and we have our box that we're going to display, and then on our box we have our materials assigned. Okay, we're still not done just yet. Last thing that we're going to do is we're going to UV map this box for texturing. If you don't know what UV mapping is, basically you just lay out all of the faces of this box flat and you put a texture on top of it, whether it be Photoshop, Substance Painter, Paint.net, whatever you can figure out how to put a texture onto a digital image, basically, is what you're trying to accomplish. So basically what I do is I go to edit mode and I want to select all the faces that I want to UV map. I'll go to UV editing, and if you notice I get this nice little bitty box. If I hit A, it's already UV mapped for me typically. If it wasn't, you could go over here and you could just hit Smart UV Project, boom, and you'll get some kind of form like this, right? So here's the thing with that though. The problem with this is I want the same texture on this everywhere. So the easiest thing to do is to put all these faces on top of each other, because this is a simplistic model, like I said. You can see how this could get more detailed. So if I had a sign or something another, like I would want to map it over here one color, and like the pole over here another color, and texture it two different things. Without me going into a long explanation of texturing and things like that, I'm just going to show you a simple method to do a simple object, and that's basically to map all the UV faces on top of each other and lay a texture on top of it and apply a normal map and a shader map and put it in game. So to do that, basically I'm just going to go around and select each face, and I'm going to go UV unwrap. I'm going to go to the next one, UV unwrap, next one, UV unwrap, and so on, all the way around the box, like this. Okay, so now should have all my faces of my box. I should be able to move it down. Yep. So these are all the faces of the box put into one UV map at once, and I'm just going to scale it down so that I can see what I need to do for a texture. Basically anything inside this box over here will get textured. If your UV map was off over here, like this, like huge or something like this part is not going to get textured outside this box. Okay, so now this box can be a 4K image, 2K image, 3K image, whatever, 1K image. Typically most things are 1 and 2K for best optimization. So why I'm telling you that is because I'm about to export this UV layout so I can go and texture it real quickly. So to do this, there is, by the way, in UV editing is what I'm in. There's a UV button. You can go export UV layout, and I'm going to call this small box DBZ. Fill opacity. There's some options on the sides. Basically, this is asking me. Well, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. You can choose where you want to save it at. I'm just going to save it on my desktop for now. And then this is the small box. So I want it to export all the UVs in the scene. I want it to be a PNG. I want it to be 1024 by 1024 to optimize it. I need the fill opacity to 1, so that's what the box is right here. It'll fill it in so that I can delete it or select it inside my texture editing. So I'm just going to hit export the layout. Just double check, make sure we're all good. Alright. I'm going to move back into layout mode. So basically this model is now ready to export to SnowRunner. So let's go ahead and do that process. Alright. First you'll need to go and find your editor files. Typically they're in documents. Sorry if your folder structure is a little bit crazy compared to yours. Under my documents there's a folder called My Games. I have some other games in here, but there is a game called SnowRunner, and you will find these folders, okay? You'll see a base folder and a media folder. The media folder is where all your mods, like if you're going to make a truck, if you're going to make a map, whatever, goes in this media folder, okay? And you'll see that I have different folders as well and probably some you'll have, maybe some of these, none of these, I'm not sure. At your point in time, at what your game has, or what kind of mods you've done, or where you've been, and what you've done. I've made trucks, so I have another extra folder called mods in here. That's where all the trucks are. So, without me taking a bunch of time to explain what is what, there is 3 folders in here that we are mainly concerned about. Now, if you do not have these folders, you will need to right click and go new folder for each one of these. You need one called classes, meshes, and textures. Okay? And I'll give you just a second so that you can check out those and you can see it in mine, and you can type those out how they need to be typed. They need to be typed exactly like these are typed and spelled right now as you're looking at them, because it does matter in what they are, because this is what the game references for where these files are at and what is in those files. Okay? I'll explain them real quick. So classes is basically the folder where the interaction of the model is programmed at. Meshes is where the actual 3D model is held. And textures is actually where the textures would be going for that model. Okay? Now, in each one of these folders, like I said, I have a little bit of extra stuff because I've been working in this game for a little bit while. You're going to be creating a new folder right now called models. Okay? So you'll right click now and go new folder, and you'll call it models. Okay? So just a quick recap. You should have media, meshes, textures, and then inside classes you should have models folder now created. Okay? Next one, you're going to go to meshes. You're going to do the same thing. Right click, new folder called models. Alright? We're going to go to textures, right click, new folder, and we're going to call it models. And if you look at here, I have some extra things. Don't worry about those. But you'll see I have tons and tons and tons and tons of textures in here. Okay? That's all the textures to my custom models. Alright, now then, you should have the 3 folders that are classes, meshes, and textures. And inside those 3 folders, you should have another folder called models. Okay? Now then, at this point you should have our model set up with a collision mesh so it interacts with a tire or whatever you want it to do. And we have it mapped with a texture, and we have it UV mapped to be textured. Okay? Let's go ahead now and then and take the time. We have all the folder structure as well, so let's go ahead and take the time to get a texture in on this real quick. So I have paint.net is what I'm going to use, and we exported that to my desktop. So you'll need to find wherever you exported this to. And I'm just going to drag this into paint.net so that it will open up in paint.net for me. Okay. The next thing I'm going to want to do is you'll get this little black outline. Right here around this. And by the way, I just went tool magic 1. I'm hoping that you know how to use paint.net some. And then I just zoomed in and I selected this little black line. I want to change its color to white, and I'll explain the reason why for that as I do that. Feel this. Because anywhere you see this box right here is where the texture is going to be for the surface that we just UV mapped. So I'm going to put a wooden texture, box texture right here. But if I just would have just selected the white or the black box, it would have had a little section cut out, or it would have been black. It would have showed up like a little black outline around the box everywhere, basically. So in order for me to fix that, I needed a bigger section to be filled, so I went ahead and filled the black section and the little gray section inside. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go here, and I'm going to fill this with a black color. Fill section. Alright, cool. Now then, we basically have a template. So this is our box, same as the UV map on there. So if I was just to put this in SnowRunner, it would have a white texture on it, and the box would just be white. Wouldn't look like anything, right? Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another layer, basically. Delete layer. I'm going to add a new layer. Sorry. And then in the background, I'm going to delete the centered part so that I can see whatever I lay over on layer 2 will now be underneath here, basically. And I also slid it underneath the actual background so that it's underneath the background and not on top of the background. Okay. I'm just going to Google a box real quick. Box texture, I don't know, whatever. Let's see. This looks like a decent texture, but it's all blurry. Yep. Alright, cool. That one's not bad. Sorry, I'm picky sometimes about texture. This can kind of take a minute. So this is what sometimes is the hardest thing to do, is to find the right texture that you really like, honestly. Okay, this will work right here. So I'm going to copy this image. I create a new texture because whatever size they had formatted. Oh, sweet. And then I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to throw it down in there. And I'm going to size this bad boy up real quick to our box. Okay. And it doesn't have to be super perfect, because I'm trying to get through this pretty quickly. Alright, cool. Now then, we have a box. I'm going to merge these two together. I'm going to go File, Save As. Alright, but I'm going to save this to my desktop, and instead of doing a PNG file this time, I'm now going to call it a TGA file. But the name of it needs a appending letter, basically. Each map for texture, normal map, and a shader map needs a image tagging name, basically. So, meaning that this particular image is a diffuse texture, or a normal map, or a specular, or shader map, sorry. So, in order to do that naming, I'm going to go ahead and name this DBZ small box, and they're always underscore D for diffuse map. Okay, and they're TGA format. So I'm going to go ahead and save this out to my desktop. Hoorah. Okay. Now then, we got our texture that we need. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and copy this now that we have this here. And I am going to drop this into that same folder that we were working in already. But it is going to go into the textures folder. Okay. Anytime you want to create a texture for a model, it goes into the Documents, My Game, SnowRunner, Media, Textures, Models, that folder you created earlier, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to dump this in here. Okay. And I called it DBZ small box underscore D. Right there. Okay. Alright. Now then, let's go ahead and get this into the editor next. So, I'm going to go ahead and open up the editor. If you've never been in the editor and had all these extra folders and you don't see them, there's this little button right here that says show all files and folders. This will show everything that I have. Okay? Now then, in meshes, models, you'll see that you won't have anything in here yet. Okay? This is where you're going to put your model, basically. You're going to export your model into this folder from Blender. Okay, I have all these custom models that I've made and done, but yours is going to go in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and export this from Blender. So we're going to go File, Export, and the format that SnowRunner uses is an FBX file. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to name this. So we're keeping the same naming, DBC underscore small box .fbx. Okay, and this needs to go in Documents, My Games, SnowRunner, Media, Meshes, and finally the last folder, like I said, is always Models. Okay, you will not have any of these in here that you see loading in my Blender, right? Because you don't have any model in here yet. So this will let you be able to export your model. All this is set. Pretty sure I'll just leave all this to default. Alright. Actually, no. I think C up is what I needed. Yeah. X facing me and then Z facing up. Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay. That'll work. Like I said, rotation matters earlier, but to me in this box, it really doesn't matter. Like if it was a rock, it really wouldn't matter because you're going to spin it around a million different times anyway. So, let's go ahead and get this exported. Alright, it's pretty quick. So, come back over here to the editor. There's an update. We can go ahead and update our files. And for you, and amongst all these DBZs, you will have, I'm assuming your name, because mine is DBZ, Dubz, obviously is what it stands for, abbreviated. Small box, S. It's alphabetical always. Yeah, bingo. Okay, you'll see this little icon right here, meaning that there's an FBX here, and there is a small box that is now, or a model. This is your model, basically. It will not have a XML file underneath it, you'll notice. But if I double click on this to load this model here in a second, it's going to ask me to create an XML file. Now, what this is about to do is this is about to create an XML file that will hold the information where your textures need to be referenced from. So these are the code that says, okay, these textures belong to this model and display them on the surface of this model. Okay? That's why each one of these have an XML underneath them. So when they load their textures. As you can see, it's going to say create a new XML for my location for my small box. And I'm going to say yes. And you're going to say the name. Always just hit OK, because do not ever rename this or it will not work. The game will reload, or the editor will reload. And you will now see a box, or a small box, as soon as I find it, right here. Okay, you'll see a new XML. And what we will see with that is we will notice that I can click on this XML. Okay, if you see this, it's saying I did not reset the transforms on something. Okay, not in, and the game's going to reset it. And now this other area is saying that it can't find a classes file because we have not gave it a classes file yet for the XML. Okay, because I did not create one yet. We hadn't went through any of that yet, so okay. Now, and you can see that our box is in the middle of the ground, and for some reason all the transforms didn't get applied. But we have our box. See? So anywhere I put this box, this CDT will follow it. So there's the CDT for it. And there's the box. I'm going to reload it to position it back. Okay. So for some reason, all these transforms, apply all transforms, did not get set, and sometimes I have to do apply all transforms to delta and apply all transforms again. And let's do file, export FBX, and it saved my last known location, so I'm going to go ahead and export over top. And we're going to reload. Okay, we are not. All these are set. All these are set. Alright, applied all the transforms. Why are we not doing this? All transforms to delta onto to apply all transforms. Maybe I just need to do the meshes. No? Okay, sorry about that. I noticed what the problem was. Rotation does matter in all this. That was the issue in the nutshell. In Blender, when I was exporting, we had picked some different settings. The real settings that you're going to need is forward is Z forward, up is Y up. That will be the correct format that you need. Before, I think we had it as X forward and Z up. So it's Z forward and Y up is what you needed it to be. We export that, and we reloaded this guy, and obviously we brought it back into where we were. Okay? Alright, picking back up again. If I right click on this box, you'll have a couple of options here. You'll notice that you have a reload the object, reset the matrix, or open XML file. Okay, we need to open the XML file. By the way, if you do not have this linked already to some kind of editor like NotePad++, I use Visual Basic, so whatever you prefer as a code editor, you will need to get that as well. Install that program. I did not mention that earlier. That is part of modding. You will need NotePad++ typically, or Visual Basic. I will include the links for both of those in the description. Okay. Once you do that, you need to link the files or windows. You need to link the file basically. So if you go back actually to Media, Meshes, Models, you'll have 2 items in here, not 1,000 like me. You will now have 2 items right here. Alright, this one's probably going to be white because Windows doesn't know what kind of file or what options to do with it. I have Windows 11, excuse me, if you have any other options than mine, because maybe you have Windows 10. If you go to properties of the file, you can change what it opens with. You just click change. Mine's Microsoft Visual Studio. If you had Notepad++, you will pick Notepad++. Okay. If you can't find those, you got to go to more. If you can't find it still, you have to look for it on your PC. You have to go to files or programs. Files. Where are you? Actually, it's program files x86. Notepad++ and the program itself. Okay? Alright, great. You got that fixed. Alright, I have mine open in Visual Basic, but I will also need to open this guy real quick because I can never remember what the code is. Copy. Alright. I will give you just a second to type all this out. And I will tell you what these are here in just a second. And we will fill these in as we go. Okay. Alright. So, to start out with, for the texturing of the box, we go back to small box. This is the XML file that pertains to this small box, okay? It needs to reference those textures that we set up, like I said, okay? To do that, we need to reference those files. You'll need to go ahead and start typing this in. I'll give you a couple of minutes to get to this point right here. And sorry about that. I'll let you get to the point. You can pause the video or whatever you want right now and you can take a peek at those. But when you get to this point, you will need to understand a couple of things. Type of the mesh that it's trying to reference is a model. You can change this to wheels, there's trucks, there's different types. We're not getting into that. Your type is always model. Okay? The next thing that's in this code is material that you're seeing. That is... Why is this doing this? Oh, do I not have insert on? Yes. Wow. Okay, Visual Studio. I don't know what your deal is today. It's not showing my cursor. Whatever. Alright, anytime I ever make changes, it's going to ask me to reload it. So, there we go. I don't know what happened to it a while ago. Anyway, alright, albedo map is also the name of the texture. So, we have to... I'll click on that, obviously. I want to open this one again. Yeah, it's models. It's not a good reference, sorry. Give me this. Yeah, I'm just pretty sure it's models. Okay. I just wanted to double check before I told you wrong. Small box. Okay, back to our box. Okay, always type in models / texture name. And we said we needed to call that it's a diffuse map or a texture map. Albedo map is what they call it. But we need to go ahead and type in the name of that texture. Okay? Now, name. Name is important because it pertains to the name of the actual material itself that you assigned it in Blender. Okay? This is where the material came in. So, ours was DBZ small box. Right? We hadn't created a normal map or a shader map yet. So, we're just going to save this And we're going to reload our changes. Okay. Small box. And we are going to go down here. Compound, small box. Do we now put it in there? It's never there. Media, textures, models. Yeah. And let's double check our coding. Maybe I missed something on the coding. Yes. Alright, now then, hey, we got a box, right? Sorry about that, if I could spell correctly. As you can see, we got like a nice little wooden crate, it looks like. But if you notice, it's kind of got a sheen to it. Like if I move it around, it kind of looks shiny. That's because we're missing a shader map on it. Alright, and the other thing that we're missing on it is a normal map, because you can see that there's no indentation on this box. Like if you start looking at it real close, it's just flat as it can be. So let's go ahead and create some of those next. Alright. So, got our code here. Let's minimize our blender. Okay. Now then, let's create a normal map. So, Laigter is the program that I've used for a while. It's super easy. It's really nice. It allows you to tweak some settings and things like that. It won't create a shader map, but it will create you a normal map that you can use. So to use it, basically, once you open it up, you got a couple of options up here. There's a YouTube videos out there about how to use it and stuff. You're going to need to import your image. So basically, I'm just going to import it from my desktop because that's where I stuck it. Okay, and you're like, okay, this is just the same image. Like, I don't see anything here. What are we? And that's because underneath all these, there is some other images that have been made now after import. If we switch this to normal, you can see that there's now a normal map. And this is called a normal map is like where all this bumpiness and like grain and texture is at, and like where the boards are in depth. This creates like a depth of the image or texture basically, and allows you to make a flat surface three-dimensionally. And when I switch it to this, there is a couple of options on the left hand side that I like to do. I like to mute out all the distances around it, okay? And that is just giving me basically a definite outline, and it's not beveled. Like if I turn the softness up on this, it just blurs it a little bit more, because I'm looking for detail. Distance is kind of the same thing, height, and things like that. Anyway, I just turn them down to get a nice good clean edge around here, okay? The next thing I need to do is turn down the softness a bit, usually, to give it a little bit more finer details, because I want a little bit crispier image. But I don't want it too much. I don't want an extreme like this. This would look terrible in game, right? So we're looking for fine balance here. I'm just playing with these numbers a little bit. I'm trying to get these two top numbers here where it's somewhat detailed but not over the top. I kind of like this. And when you get ready, basically you have some options down here. You got the export area, and you can select what maps get exported. Okay. This is always going to export in PNG. I don't think there's another option to change what file format it exports in. So it is what it is. So I'm going to export it back to my desktop because it's automatically where I found it at. So I'm just going to select folder, and it's going to say map was exported. I'm going to close this guy. And I'm going to drag and open this into paint.net. And I'm going to save as a TGA instead of a diffused, or instead of a PNG, sorry. The next thing I want to do is I need to change the naming scheme a little bit. Before it was __D. For normal maps it's __N_D. Okay, I know that's a bit confusing there, but that's just how SnowRunner is. That's how it distinguishes this is a normal map. Okay, I'm going to save that. I'm going to minimize paint, and I'll have our new image right here. I can delete that out of the way, because this can be read into Laigter. Laigter can read TGAs if I needed to bring it into something. Paint.net can read TGAs, so I'm going to cut this from here. I'm going to go back to my documents, my games, SnowRunner, media, textures, always in that models folder, and I'm going to drop that texture in. Okay. The next thing, we can move back to the editor. I know I'm switching around a lot. I'm hoping that you can stay in this with me. We're going to open our code back up again that we were looking at. And you will now, if you didn't get this earlier, you'll need to type in a normal map underneath here. Equals with quotations, and we're just going to fill it in just like we did before with models. And that's why I use Visual Basic, because it has a pre-fill. And we're going to go copy the image, DBZ's name, small, underscore, box, okay, __, in, _ d.tga. Okay, that'll fill that in. Alright, now then, you see, now it makes it look like there's an edge to this box. And it's got some wood grain to it, and it's got a real nice look to it. But if you notice, it's still got this gross sheen to it though. It's like glossy. And if I put this in game, it will be glossy like this as well. Okay. So, the best thing to do for that is to create a shader map. Now, what a shader map is it's supposed to show all these shadows and like these divots and these cracks and things like that. And when the sun from the game reflects on it, it'll cast shadows up on these cracks and things like that. Alright, You would normally want to create something that looked kind of like this normal map over here, but it in a different color. This is way too dark of a color. You just don't want this, and it needs to be able to distinguish between it being raised up and down. So the easiest way to create a shader map, what I would do is I would just go into your paint scene that you're working in, and I would just go ahead and create a 1024, because that's what we've been working on. Size image, that's blank, and I would kick her over here to a light bluish color, because that's what I've found the game likes the most. And I would go ahead and select all the selection. I would fill that selection with that color right there. Maybe a hair bit darker. And fill selection. Yeah, that's probably good. Something like that, right? And we're going to save this as TGA as well. DBZ, small box, okay, and this one is underscore SH for shader map underscore diffuse. Alright, and we're going to save that out. And we're going to cut this map from right here. We're going to go back to SnowRunner, Media, Textures, Models, and we're going to paste that texture in there. And we'll see it right there. Okay. Now we're going to come back and we're going to reference that in the code. Get my editor back up and our code back up. I'm going to go models, DBZ, small box, underscore SH underscore D dot TGA. Okay. We're going to save that. And alright, what we're going to see is the sheens going to go away. Bam. See there? Alright. Sorry, it looks like it's not loading my normal map, but it is. And like I said, so the shader map also would display the bumps as well, besides the normal map. It also give you that indeption look. But since, like I said, I don't have Substance Painter typically, that's what I would use, and it would bake that for me. So that it would still have that nice effect to it, basically. And if I just deleted this, it would just be super shiny. But you get a little bit more detail out of it. See? It's just flattening of the image, basically, or just kind of like doesn't give it as much detail. So that's what the shader map is all about and what it kind of does. So Alright. Okay. Let's reload this. Okay. So now then, we got our box. Everything's ready to go. I'm assuming that you already have a map that you're wanting to put this in. So I have a little nice testing map here. Yeah, there it is. So, let's go in and add this bad boy now. You'll just go to add model, just like you would a normal game one. It's going to take a minute for mine to load because I have 1,000 models for it to load. So it has to reference and cache all those textures so that in case that I use them, that it would pack them correctly into my model. So that's what it is doing right now. And the more models you put in and the bigger the model library like I have, the more likely you are to have to wait, basically, for the model thing to pop up. Once it does it the first time, you can go back and add it a bunch of different times. So I'm going to type in DBZ. So we have an issue here. We never went in and we coded the classes files. Okay, we made all the textures and we made all the meshes, but we have not made the classes files. So in classes models, typically you can go in game and you can find something that you're trying to reference and you can find it. I just needed to find something that is pretty simplistic, and I'll copy, paste this. Okay, now the name has to be the same name as your model. So keeping that same name throughout everything always is best practice. Okay. Now then, in here is a set of code, and I'll let you look at this information while I'm looking at different things, or talking about different things, basically in here. Now, this set of code is not the same as the texture code. The texture code calls and references the texture. This code calls in the model to be loaded into the model editor to be put in the world, and what interaction it is with the world. Okay? There's different types of codes for different models, like a sign would act different than a box would. You would need to go find a sign, and you would need to reference its classes files and what information they use for it to interact with things like that as well. For this, it's just a plain old box, so it's kind of like my rocks. So this code right here basically is just the same as what my rocks are for most of my maps. And this code starts out with model brand as the opening tag. And please do type this exactly the same thing with the meshes. Type this all the way through. If you can't see this, let me get this pretty well zoomed in here so we can see what we're looking at. Instance true, I'm not sure what some of these are. Instance true. Okay, yes, no. So if you wanted to do as, this is instance as a single model. So anytime you add this model repeatedly, it's just going to take the first model that you initially added to the scene, the editor, and it's going to instance that each time. instead of trying to load a million different messages everywhere. So this is very useful for rocks, a lot of road signs, if you're going to use a road sign multiple times over and over again, or something along those lines. Night lighting shadows, allow cap. This is just shadows for night. You can say yes. Clipping camera. This is a big one. Clipping camera is if you get close to the model, the camera wigs out. We've all seen it on some of the dev models. They don't have this in their code, and your camera goes all wiggity wonk and you can't get around the model. Okay, I feel like a sign should always, or the box should be able to be like gotten really close to, or maybe possibly interact with one day if you decided to make it move around. Whatever, right? Okay, that's what you would want to set for it. Clipping camera bridge, true as well. It's the same thing. If like the model was close to a bridge or something like that, it would be a clipping camera issue. Okay. Next thing is physical model that you see down here. This is the actual interaction code with the model. The body type is collision is dynamic, so that you can actually collide with it. And if you notice, there is a friction value over there to the right. That is the actual friction of the surface and how slick the surface is or is not. So if you set the friction to 0, like the devs have on their rocks, the friction is like ice. If you set it to 10, you will do a wheelie and flip over the rock. If it was a rock or a box, whatever. I typically like to set my friction to 1.0. That is a really good friction, especially for rocks. If you're doing rocks, it is very nice. It gives you a little bit of spin, but it also gives you the grip that you needed. The closing quote down there is the model brand. So we needed this model in order to call this into the game, because as you noticed earlier, I did not have that model option. Bad thing about SnowRunner is I have to close the editor and reopen it again. And let's just make sure we have to turn on all files. And let's go back to meshes. And let's double check our box is loading correctly. Okay. This is good. This is something I wanted to catch. This happens quite often in SnowRunner. For some reason, if you don't create a classes file first, or some unknown reason, it is now not able to find the name of this box in the textures that you assigned to it. So it is not realizing that this name is the name that is tied to this model. Okay. To fix this, I've always had to go back in and rename the material to something else and re-export the model. So in this case, we're just gonna tack a A underneath it. I'm gonna file, export the FBX again. I'm going to reload it again in the editor. And we will now see that this has an A. Okay. Change my code and my texture. Basically. It will now be relinked. Why it does this, I don't know. It's a glitch that's been happening for, I don't know, ever since season 5, 6, something like that. And so far my scale in Blender is set to meters, I believe. So it's just there. I don't know what this looks like in game, so let's try that again. So let's go back to our map that you're working on. Mine is here. And let's add a new model. Once again, like I said, I have to wait eons and eons, I feel like. And you can see that this just takes a long time. And we can type in DBZ. We should be able to type in small, and we'll have a small box. And this box is relatively huge compared to a truck, which, as you can see, an in-game truck. Now, I could scale this by clicking in this little dot in the middle and scaling this down. But that's not something I want to do. That's a lot of work. So I don't want to do that to every single box. Now, if I just had like one object and needed it to scale, you know, or you could scale it down and duplicate it. I mean, you could do that, but it's just not something that I like to do typically. So the best thing I like to do to this box here is let's add it back again. Small box. Alright, there she is from day one. And we'll jump back into Blender. We'll grab both of these. We can scale them down like so. And we can hit apply all transforms to delta. And I like to hit apply all transforms. So we got our box now is all small. So CDTs are right size, box is small, everything's small. You can get export, FBX, and then in game you can hit the reload button. Oh, it's not gonna let me do it now. I didn't save the map. If I would have clicked saved the model, it would have just edited the model in front of you. But I didn't. But now then, we got a way smaller box. So, there be our box. We could save our level. Let's pack it. So basically this is going to pack up all my textures to that box and all the levels, textures, and everything that I referenced and anything like that. So if you had custom models, like tons of custom models, right, you could just go to town basically, and then it's going to pack it up all for you. But I will forewarn you by doing this, I've spent hours and days making these custom models for the devs to come back and tell me that it's not going to be on console because there's issues with them having custom assets and trying to load on consoles and this and that. I've had that happen to Maka Springs a lot. And this map packs relatively quick, which is nice. The larger the map, the longer it takes to pack. So we can close this. I'm pretty much done with Blender, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm done with my texturing, so I'm going to close all this. And I'm going to fire up SnowRunner. go test that mod level rock testing. Pick a spot for it to load into. Boom, and just like that, and there's our box. So and there's our box. But seems all the transforms did not apply. Because I'm hitting the box, but the box is not in the right spot. Let's import the model back again. Models. Where would be this box? Okay. So the CDT looked like it was working correctly, but the small box is not working correctly. Apply all transforms. Delta. Apply all transforms. There it is. Delete. Alright. There we go. Scale this up. And copy and paste this bad boy and call it CDT. Sorry y'all, I have to fix a few things here, but gives y'all a chance to see how to fix things. CDT never needs a material, by the way, so I just remove it. I'll call it CDT. I'm going to do object, set origin to center of the surface. We're going to scale this bad boy till about maybe something like here. Then I'm going to go and set origin back to 3D cursor, object, apply, all transforms. Whoa. Seriously? Alright. So we got this cube. Something like that, right? That'll work for fixing right now. And then object, set origin to 3D cursor, apply all transforms. Okay. Call this CDT. Call this CDT. Okay, file, export FBX, my games, SnowRunner, media, mods, or meshes, sorry, models, DBZ small box. Let's go back to the editor. Let's check the small box again. Okay, file, export, FBX, load. Okay, let's go check our level. Let's pack it. And we should get a fixed model. Hopefully. Okay. Let's fire up SnowRunner again. Sorry about the long video on this. I was hoping that it would be way under this time. These are the issues that it comes with making custom assets. The more detailed you get, the more time it takes, the more, you know, it's just like making a truck in its own form. People don't realize that making custom assets take a little bit of time. You have to understand how to model. Several things that go into making custom assets for these maps and things, and I spend a lot of time doing it. I spend hours making these maps. Yeah, there we go. And as you can see, after applying the transforms, we now have a working box, and I can obviously drive on it and whatever now. Yeah, if it wasn't so wonky donkey, but nonetheless, yeah, there is your custom asset for SnowRunner. A fully modeled box, ready to go. That's basically how you do custom assets at this for SnowRunner. Sorry, like I said, it was so long on a video, and I appreciate you sticking in there with me to the end on this, but you know, I figured I would just get this out there to help some people get started in custom assets. Hopefully this will help get you started and you understand kind of how to get things going, what all you need to do, and anything else that you would need to kind of get going. So if you like this video, make sure and subscribe, like my channel. But that's going to be all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Later, everyone.